Am I the butthole for being upset that my husband went out drinking with my sister while I stayed home? Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd find myself here, writing this post, but after what happened last weekend, I can't stop questioning my feelings, my relationship, and whether or not I'm justified in how I reacted. My name is Anna, I'm 32 years old, and my husband Tom and I have been married for 5 years. We've had our fair share of ups and downs, but until recently, I always felt like we communicated well. That is, until this past Saturday, when something happened that left me feeling betrayed and unsure of where we stand. Tom and I had planned a quiet evening at home, something simple, something we both had been looking forward to. But just as we were about to settle in, my sister, Rebecca, entered the picture. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my sister, and we've always been close, but recently, it feels like Tom prioritizes her over me, and Saturday night was no exception. When Tom told me that Rebecca had texted and wanted to go out for drinks, I felt a pit of disappointment in my stomach, but I didn't want to come across as clingy or controlling. After all, family is important, and I know how close they've become. Still, I didn't expect Tom to completely disregard our plans, leaving me at home while he went out drinking with my sister for the rest of the night. That's when everything fell apart, and now I can't help but wonder, am I overreacting, or is there something deeper going on in our relationship? Tom and I met 7 years ago through mutual friends, and we clicked right away. He was charming, funny, and had this easygoing nature that made me feel comfortable and secure. I fell for him quickly, and before I knew it, we were inseparable. We got married 2 years into our relationship, and for the most part, it's been a great marriage. My sister, Rebecca, and I have always been close, even though we're very different people. Rebecca is spontaneous, adventurous, and doesn't like to stick to a plan. I, on the other hand, tend to be more reserved, preferring structure and routine. Despite our differences, I've always looked up to her for her fearless attitude and her ability to go with the flow. When Tom and I got married, I was relieved that he and Rebecca got along so well. I wanted my husband and sister to have a good relationship. It felt important for my family to stay connected. However, over time, things started to shift. It wasn't just that they got along well, it started feeling like Tom and Rebecca were becoming closer than I was with either of them. They'd make plans without me or hang out just the two of them, leaving me feeling left out. At first, I thought I was being too sensitive, maybe even insecure, but as these instances piled up, I couldn't help but feel like I was becoming the third wheel in my own marriage. Rebecca travels a lot for work, so she's not around all the time, but whenever she's in town, it feels like Tom's world revolves around her, and every time, I'm the one who gets sidelined. I've tried to be understanding, to not let my jealousy get the best of me, but it's hard when you feel like you're being pushed aside, especially by the two people you're closest to in the world. Last Saturday was just another example of this growing dynamic. The day started off normal enough. Tom and I slept in, made breakfast together, and talked about our plans for the evening. It wasn't anything special, just a quiet night in, cooking dinner, watching a movie, and relaxing. I'd even picked up a bottle of wine I knew Tom liked, and I was genuinely excited about the low-key night we had planned. Then around p.m., Tom got a text from Rebecca. She had just gotten back into town and wanted to go out for drinks. I overheard him talking to her on the phone while I was in the kitchen, and I knew right then and there that our plans. Tom sounded excited, which wasn't surprising. He and Rebecca always have a good time together, and she's the kind of person who's hard to say no to. I felt a little pang of disappointment, but I didn't want to be the wife who told her husband he couldn't go out with her sister. Family is family, right? So, when Tom casually mentioned that Rebecca wanted to grab a drink, I tried to be cool about it. Maybe you could meet up with her later, I suggested, trying not to sound bothered. We could still have dinner and watch the movie first. Tom paused for a second, thinking, yeah, that could work. Let me see what Rebecca says. For a moment, I felt a bit of relief. Maybe things wouldn't be ruined after all. But as the evening wore on, Tom became more and more distracted, checking his phone, texting Rebecca back and forth. By 4 p.m., he was pacing in the living room, clearly anxious to go. Finally, he came to me with a sheepish look on his face. Rebecca wants to meet earlier, he said. She's got other plans later tonight. Would it be okay if I went out with her for a bit and then came back? We can still watch the movie when I get home. I felt a knot in my chest, but I didn't want to make a scene. Sure, go ahead, I said, forcing a smile. Have fun. Tom kissed me on the cheek, thanked me for being so understanding, and left as soon as Tom walked out the door. The loneliness hit me like a wave. I had been looking forward to this night all week, and now I was sitting in our living room alone. I finished cooking dinner, even though I knew Tom wouldn't be home to enjoy it with me. I poured myself a glass of wine and ate in silence, staring at his empty chair. After dinner, I cleaned up the kitchen and tried to distract myself by watching the movie we were supposed to watch together, but it wasn't the same. The whole time, I kept checking the clock, wondering when Tom would come home. He hadn't given me a specific time, but I figured he'd be back by 10 or 11 at the latest. As the hours passed, my frustration grew. By midnight, there was still no sign of Tom. I sent him a text asking when he'd be home, but he didn't reply. At around 12:30, the front door finally opened, and Tom stumbled in, clearly tipsy and in a good mood. "You're still up?" he asked, surprised. "I was waiting for you," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Oh, sorry. Rebecca and I were just having such a good time. I lost track of time," he said with a grin, completely unaware of how hurt I was. That's when my frustration boiled over. "Do you even realize how selfish that was?" I snapped. Tom blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean? You said it was okay for me to go out with Rebecca." "I did," I admitted, "but I didn't expect you to stay out all night and leave me sitting here by myself. We had plans, Tom. I was looking forward to spending time with you, and you completely disregarded that." Tom frowned, clearly confused. "I didn't mean to upset you. I thought you'd be fine with it." "Well, I wasn't fine with it," I replied, my voice growing louder. "I sat here all night, waiting for you to come home, while you were out drinking with my sister." What started as a calm discussion quickly turned into a heated argument. Tom insisted that I was overreacting, while I felt like he was dismissing. He couldn't understand why I was so upset, and I couldn't understand why he didn't see how his actions were affecting me. "Why are you making this such a big deal?" Tom asked, clearly frustrated. "Rebecca is your sister. You should be happy we get along so well." "I am happy you get along," I shot back, "but this isn't about that. It's about you always putting her first. Every time she's in town, I feel like I don't even exist." Tom shook his head. "That's not true, and you know it. You're acting like I'm cheating on you or something." "I'm not accusing you of cheating," I said, my voice shaking with emotion. "But I feel like I'm competing with my own sister for your attention, and I shouldn't have to feel that way in my own marriage." We went back and forth for what felt like hours, neither of us willing to back down. In the end, we went to bed angry. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if things would ever get better. The next morning, the tension between us was palpable. We barely spoke as we went through our morning routine, both of us still simmering from the argument. Over breakfast, I decided to try again. "Tom, we need to talk about last night," I said, quietly, setting my coffee cup down. He looked up from his plate, his expression guarded. "What is there to talk about? We already went over it." "I don't think we really did," I replied, trying to keep my tone calm. "I just feel like my feelings weren't taken into consideration, and that's what hurt the most. I understand that you wanted to spend time with Rebecca, but I'm your wife. I was looking forward to our evening together, and it felt like you didn't care about that." Tom sighed and leaned back in his chair. "Anna, I do care about you, but sometimes it feels like you're asking too much. Rebecca doesn't come around often, and I don't see what's wrong with me wanting to spend time with her when she's in town." "I'm not saying you can't spend time with her," I clarified, "but there has to be a balance. You can't just drop everything we had planned because she wants to go out." "I'm not asking you to choose between me and Rebecca. I'm asking you to be more mindful of how your decisions affect me." Over time, things between Tom, Rebecca, and me improved. Tom kept his promise to be more mindful of how his actions affected me, and Rebecca made an effort to include me in their outings. While there were still moments of insecurity on my part, I was learning to trust that my marriage was strong enough to withstand these challenges. It wasn't easy, and there were still bumps along the way, but we were working through it together. Tom and I started spending more quality time together, rekindling the connection that had felt distant for so long. And while Rebecca and Tom still had their bond, I no longer felt threatened by it. I realized that their relationship didn't take away from mine with either of them. It was simply an extension of the family we had all built together. Looking back, I'm glad I spoke up about how I was feeling. It was uncomfortable and difficult, but it was necessary. Communication is key in any relationship, and for too long, I had been keeping my feelings bottled up, afraid of seeming but by addressing the issue head on, we were able to find a solution that worked for all of us. In the end, I realized that it wasn't about who spent more time with whom, it was about feeling valued, heard, and respected in my relationship. And once we all understood that, things began to fall into place. I'm still working on my own insecurities, but I'm learning to trust in the strength of my marriage and the love we have for each other, and that, more than anything, has made all the difference. So Reddit, am I the butthole for being upset that my husband went out drinking with my sister while I stayed home? Or were my actions justified? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, please.